specific, I was sent a book by Steve Torma, who's a member here at Earth Haven. Most of you don't know who he is, I'm sure. But anyway, he sent me this book. It's called The Invisible Rainbow. Has anybody seen that? And it's an amazing work by a physician who has spent decades studying all the research for the last 150 years on electricity and its bad effects as well as its good effects. And it's absolutely shattering for a physician because so many of the mysteries that we have struggled with for so long about why are people sick with this, why are they sick with that, the data that he has collected makes it very clear, and that's exciting. You know, even if I can't do anything about it at this point, I can at least understand what happened, and to me that's very important and very satisfying, just to go, oh, now I see what was happening. All right, yeah, great. So yeah, I'm happy to be here with you all having this conversation, and I'm well. Everything is going well here. Yeah, that's me.
So I've just turned the recording on, if that's okay with everybody.
Sure, for me. Yeah. Okay. So is anybody sort of guiding this discussion? No.
No.
Well, I think it would be helpful if I knew the topic, and maybe I could probably play some role, constructive role in guiding the discussion. Or is there a topic?
We were thinking we would leave the mic open for questions rather than arrange a specific topic.
Great.
Because everything that's happening right now is so dynamic that a question from 3 or 4 days ago may not be as burning.
Right, I've noticed that. Yeah.
Right. So the floor is open for questions.
I have a question.
Great.
Speaking of the 10 cosmic powers, do you have a sense of which ones might be more in play than others? What facets are coming to the fore right now?
I think that's a very interesting question. I mean, I do think that overall they tend to, you know, kind of work as a group. They collaborate a lot, but it feels very much like a lot of Kali energy going on right now. A lot of sort of slapping around and lopping heads off, and generally being clear that that's enough. You know, it's like, okay, that's enough. So I feel that powerful Shakti Kali energy is really at the forefront of all of this, and that I find that very reassuring. So I don't know that I can say anything more than that. I mean, I'm sure that there's a place for each of the Mahavidyas in this process, but at the moment it's like, you know, we had to be waked up We had to be shaken up. It was just so stagnant. Everything was so stagnant. I mean, it still is, but the waking up seems to be taking hold. That's what I would say. And I mean, I think that's the first step. And I hope it doesn't wane prematurely, the waking up, you know. I hope the waking up continues. It's not an easy time. It's not going to be an easy time, because in order to, well, who was I talking with today? I think I don't know, I don't remember. I was talking to several people today, but this whole question of atomizing dissolution is really pretty perceptible at this point. And is anybody not, has that expression faded from your memory, or is everybody still on board with what that means?
I would like you to say a little bit more about it, that because I was like trying to, it seems distant to me.
Yeah. Well, in several of the things I'm teaching, it's because of a lot of things that are going on. You know, we were looking at what Gebser said about moving into the integral. You know, what is that process like, and what are the pitfalls and so forth. And he mentions in several places in the book, especially the last chapter, I think it's the last chapter or next to the last chapter, which is very short. And I would encourage everyone to go back and read that, because it's kind of like, sounds like it was written today. He was talking about the challenges of moving into the integral structure of consciousness. And, you know, I mean, the challenges are enormous, and it's enormously intimidating. You know, the very idea of what we have to let go of in order to be in a state of integral consciousness is mind-blowing. You know, we really have to set the ego aside. First of all, that has been feeling impossible. We have to move into a place of holding the efficient mental strongly. And the deficient mental is now the order of the day. You know, I mean, it's like everywhere. We have to move into holding the efficient mythical strongly. And the same applies for the efficient magic structure of consciousness. And each of those is like an enormously daunting challenge. You know, this is it. I mean, what I would say is that, you know, Gebser wrote his book back in the 40s and 50s, and finally it all came into English the end of the 60s or beginning of the 70s, somewhere along there. I always forget the exact dates. But he was already saying, well, you know, hey, this is beginning to happen. And how long ago was that? Like 50 years ago? 50, half a century? He kept saying in the next few decades. Well, 5 decades is not a few. I mean, I don't feel that way. So I think that what has happened is we backed up away, like, oh no, that's too much. And we have fallen into this period of kind of numbness and inaction, you know, kind of like a daze, like we've all been dazed, you know, walking around dazed, like. And I think, Andrew, that the girls decided, all right, that's enough. I mean, we've been patient 50 years here. Time to start lopping off heads and shaking things up a bit, because they're not doing it. They're just not doing it. They've stagnated. And so I think that feels very true to me. But what Gebser said about, Alex, coming back to your question, what Gebser said is, if you don't do it, you have a choice. You don't have to do it. If you don't do it, what will ensue is a period or maybe, well, he didn't put a time qualification on it like I'm trying to do, but what will ensue is atomizing dissolution, meaning that everything just starts dissolving, like structures dissolve, everything dissolves, our sense of who we are dissolves, our sense of where to go, what we're here for dissolves. Everything just, like those pictures on the screen sometimes, when they just start breaking up into little pieces and drifting off. That's a fairly recent effect in cinematography and so forth. But I think it's an expression of like, oh yeah, this is us. Just, you see the face and then you see pieces and then then it all sort of dissipates. And so that atomizing dissolution seems like the default mode in the last 50 years. So, think about it. What is it if you sit in front of a television and you have a satellite and you have how many channels? 135 or whatever it is. And you're going flip, flip, flip through all the channels all the time. So that's just like, there's no coherence. Just everything it's all just drifting apart. Atomizing dissolution. And so, yeah, that seems to be, it seems to be hints of, like maybe everybody's trying it, like, well, maybe not everybody, but most, maybe it's like, okay, this integral thing I feel creeping up on me is just too scary. So there's an alternative, I'll try it. And so there's a lot of atomizing dissolution going on. Yeah, I mean, is that enough to refresh your memory, Alex? He doesn't talk about it a lot of places in the book, but in fact, someone pointed out to me recently that in the fold out part at the end of Gebser, where all the things are in the chart, that what he lists as the deficient integral is atomizing dissolution. So I thought you had to get to the integral. I thought you had to get to the efficient form before you go into the deficient form. But I guess you could take a shortcut. So anyway, so Arabella, you have a question.
Okay, so here we go. We have to find a place to hold the efficient mental. We don't even know what the efficient mental is, because the deficient mental has become such a deeply ingrained societal samskara. I mean, right. Certainly we have our individual samskaras around that as well, but the society has, so I don't know what efficient mental is.
Oh, you do. I mean, we do. You're an alumna of the Tantra teacher training course. So I'm sure you have a sense of it. No, but it is hard to find these days. It's not in ample supply because the more people get shook up and frightened and fearful, the more they resort to them. Because the deficient mental is in service to the deficient magic. and the deficient mythical. It kind of clouds the waters to cover up for them. And so everybody's, everybody's kind of going crazy. I mean, I said recently to somebody, I was thinking of writing a book titled, "Why Am I Crazy?" Because pretty much everybody's crazy now. So I thought it would be refreshing to say, well, here's all the possible reasons, which of these are yours? And here's some things you might want to do about them.
Please do that. Please do that. I dare you.
Oh, I love a dare. But yeah, I mean, it is a time of craziness. And I think that most of us can see that. And we all participated in it. I mean, there are moments when I go, well, what did I say to that girl last night? Am I just, am I really upset by what's going on, or am I just fed up with it? We've done this enough. I mean, I'm fed up with it. And it's reading about, the book I showed you, which is about the role that electricity has played in every pandemic. There was another development of whether it was telegraph or whether it was telephone, or then it was radar. And each time there was a big burst of technological use of electricity that permeated the planet. There was a pandemic. I mean, that year when it started being implemented, every time for the last 100 and something years. And then he goes into the ways in which we now know, we have enough research available to know that how that these electrical fields and so forth affect us, and how they produce certain diseases. And it's worked out very elegantly for 3 diseases: heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. And those are the 3 that most people are dying from now. And he talks at some length about how, the people who worked with electricity 100 years ago knew that it had bad effects. I mean, like Marconi put up this huge thing on one of the islands off of England to demonstrate his wireless system. And he worked all day and all night for months and years, and had a kind of stroke or something at 45 years old. I mean, he just exploded. And every one of those people, Edison, what did he get? Diabetes, which was a very rare disease in those days. But each one of them has had problems from that exposure to electricity. But we love our electricity, and we kept going with it, and we kept going with it. And so no one was really motivated to talk about the downside, or to develop the techniques for protecting us against the negative effects. And so that's pretty depressing in a way, that with that intent on ignoring what we're doing to ourselves that's negative. So I mean, this is my meltdown I'm describing, because I can see, and I've become convinced, a year or so ago, I suddenly woke up one day and I said, well, everybody's committing suicide. I mean, this is the thing. Everybody, we say suicide statistics have soared, but it's not just that. It's not just the people who are shooting themselves through the head. Everybody's doing something in the way they live. Not everybody, but 90-something% of people, that is destroying them, and that they know is going to shorten their lives or end their lives. And so I finally got it. Yeah, okay, everybody's trying to kill themselves. Well, why would they do that? That was the next question. Like, there must be some reason. And then I realized, well, it isn't very much fun anymore. I mean, people's health is terrible. How many medications are they on? How many diseases do they have? Now, like teenagers have several chronic diseases. I mean, this is just insane. So people don't feel it's not so much fun to be in a body and be alive. And the vitality and the excitement of life is in short supply. And so people want to get out. You know, they take drugs or they drink or they do something to, it's like, you know, I don't want to do any more of this. I mean, that not that they have the consciousness or determination to say, all right, I'm going to shoot myself through the head. I mean, some people do, but there's a sort of subliminal self-destruction going on. And so that's I think that's a piece of that waking up, to see that and go, well, oh my God, that's what we're dealing with. And so and to my way of thinking, the backing off that we did 50 years ago and the kind of continuing with our try to keep everything the same, and any information that contradicts the way we're doing things we don't want to know about, that has been, you know, doing that has left us in a place where we've kind of cut off access to so many parts of ourselves and our life and the joy of being human, that we're just these narrow automatons, you know, and that's no fun. So why does anybody want to stay here? So that's part of that. This is all about the fear of moving into the integral. But what we have to do as healers and teachers is to help people experience the joy of living. You know, if we can help them just get a taste of the joy of being healthy and excited and, you know, engaged and energized, then I said, wow, I think I want to do more of this. I think I'll hang around. And they'll quit destroying themselves. And I think that's a very important part at this point in history. That's a very important part of healing and doing healing work and doing spiritual work, is to help people have the experience of joyful living. I mean, you know, Swamiji wrote a book before he died of the art of joyful living. And now I understand why that would be so important. But so they have some incentive to stay in the game and some incentive to break out of the status quo, that, oh my God, there's something else there. There's joy there. There's excitement. There's satisfaction. There's fulfillment of whatever. I came here for something. Oh my God, I can do it and feel fulfilled. But instead, we're all like settled into this. Okay, I got to get up and go to work. Got to do this. This has to get done. Okay, you can't do that. No, we don't do that. That's not acceptable. You know, and we just narrowed it down to the point that it's like, oh, choking us. So, you know, people are going for atomizing dissolution.
You look like you're doing it right now.
I'm going for atomizing dissolution.
Yes, your picture is just getting
fuzzier. Well, I think I got too close to the screen in my excitement. Okay, I'll back up a little. I don't have the light on that I usually have in here to illuminate my my face, which I'm not so excited about. But anyway, let me see if I can do that.
While you're getting your light,
yes,
finding your filament, as we say in the theater.
Oh, okay.
I have two musings, wonderings, questions. One is, it sounds like, and both of these are going to be homeopathic questions. One is, it sounds like constitutionals, like I think we tend to focus on a lot of times miasmic stuff, which is reasonable. There's a ton of it going on. But I'm curious about the usefulness of constitutional remedies right now and people knowing what their constitutional remedies are. So that's part A. Mm-hmm. Part B goes completely out the window, which is, is there a way to potentize electricity?
Oh, it's been done. It was
Of
done
course it has.
a century ago. Yeah,
Anybody doing anything with it?
nobody's done anything with it in the recent past. I mean, they, at some point, potencies were made of radiation too. You know, like the radiation that is what, radioactive, that kind of radiation. And as a little anecdote is, I had a patient who had a brain tumor, and he was having he had radiation. He's having some side effects of the radiation. So I gave him the radiation 200 or whatever they called it.
Huh.
And those symptoms went away, but the brain tumor came back. And that was a
Wow.
big, like,
That's a
okay.
disincentive, I suppose.
Yeah, so I ran to Swamiji and he said, yes, we'll give him this calcare iode. And I gave him calcare iode and it went back down. But it was kind of scary. So I know, but I mean, I have reason to think it worked.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And so that's, but as far as the constitutional remedies go, I just would like to remind you that if you look under the rubrics in Kent for the miasms, you'll find that most of the constitutional remedies are under one or more of the miasms.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be either or.
Great.
Yeah. And there's plenty of room for good homeopathy anytime, especially now.
Cool. Thanks.
Though I am feeling a little exasperated because I think so much of what people are struggling with is about comes from the combination of environmental toxins, and that's air, water, food, and the EMFs, the electromagnetic fields, and technology. And I think those two together are powerful enough. They have a that's the wrong word. Violent enough. Let's not get violence and power confused. They're violently destructive enough to keep us from being able to think clearly. And then it's kind of hard for us to find our way out of this dilemma. So I'm more rabid than ever about, you know, turn off your Wi-Fi at night, you know, don't hold your cell phone. I mean, really, the research is so overwhelming and frightening. And it has been clearly, I just watched a whole presentation today on the captive agency that the FDA is and the FCC. I think it's the FCC particularly. So that the industry owns the FCC now. And so they are doing nothing to monitor or control the level of radiation that people are being bombarded with. And in Russia, this is very different. And the reason is that as this technology came out, people weren't making money off of it. It was all socialist, communist. And so the scientists studied the effects for 50, 75 years. And they have been setting very stringent limits on how much the public is exposed to. And so presumably someone heard at a meeting, a conversation between Putin and somebody, and they were saying, well, you know, how can we got to compete with the West, you know, Europe, Western Europe and the US. And he just laughed and said, I don't think you're going to have to do that. And he said, why? And he said, because they're going to do themselves in with their technology. And I feel like that's happening. And so I've been going through research and watching videos and looking at charts and official papers and for months. And, you know, it's just amazing what happens to us. Actually, the electric fields have the capacity to stop the electron in your mitochondria from moving along the chain of cytochrome oxidase stations where energy is released into your body. So you don't get, you can't really use the oxygen that you've inhaled, because that's how the oxygen is used. The electron is taken off the oxygen and moves along the chain, and then that shifts, oh, what is the chemical that, anyway, that's how energy is brought into the body. And so the certain electric fields at certain frequencies so forth can stop that from happening, at which point you feel sort of sluggish because you're not getting the energy from what you eat. And then there are all these problems that build up as a result. Like, if that can't happen, the next molecule of substrate that is broken down to release energy, whether it's fats, carbohydrates, protein, can't get into the process, and it accumulates. And therefore you have obesity and you have insulin resistance. Because originally, when diabetes was first discovered for decades, it was a rare disease, and anyone who had diabetes was skinny. There was no such thing as fat diabetics. So that's just one example I'm trying to give you to make this more tangible, that yes, what we are doing, especially technologically at this point, is actually affecting is at the root of a lot of our major chronic diseases, especially heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. And so the author of this book went back and looked at the statistics for every county, not in the whole US, but a number of states, back in the 1800s. As rural electrification happened, as soon as the electrification came in, the incidence of those diseases started appearing. I mean, they were unknown. They were completely unknown. And then they started going up, first with the telegraph, then with the telephone, then with, lights and electrification, and then with the television and all the other things that have come in. But at each one of those times, there was a pandemic, and there was also the beginning of the spike up of these chronic diseases, which now are just overwhelming. I mean, we have one out of three people is either diabetic or pre-diabetic. Is that right, Linda? One out of three.
1 out of 2
1 out of 2 now.
in this country, 51%.
And 1 out of 3 women and 1 out of 2 men, or I might have that backwards, will have cancer in their lifetimes. And I don't know how you do that with heart disease, but it's still the #1 killer in the country. So, this is not ordinary. I mean, we just wanted to go back to the status quo, but this is not the status quo. This is a disaster. And so it didn't work. It didn't really work to just temporize, like, well, okay, we'll talk about that integral thing later, check with me in 20 years and I might be interested. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is our health is deteriorating. Our health has deteriorated to an alarming extent, and it's not stopped, it's just headed up, like, logarithmically. So this is not the kind of thing that we can sort of set aside and go, oh, well, let's just go on with our lives. I mean, let's don't worry about that because it won't work.
It's a representation of that atomizing dissolution, isn't it? The health of the people.
Yeah, that's dissolving. The health and well-being of and not just the health, but the clarity of consciousness. The clarity of consciousness, because both of these things, the environmental toxins and the EMFs, have a very decided effect on the brain, on the nervous system. And that has also been clarified and untangled. So I can say one more thing about that that might help people understand what they can do about it, is that the microwave radiation and Wi-Fi and so forth actually open the calcium channels to the brain and to other tissues. But the calcium channels, if you've ever heard of a calcium channel blocker, well, the calcium channels are the way that calcium gets into the cell. The cell should not have much calcium in it. It's mostly should be magnesium. High magnesium inside the cell, not calcium outside, and that tension is important for certain metabolic reactions. So there are voltage regulated gateways that are electrical that let the calcium in. Well, when you sit with a cell phone by your ear for an hour, all the gates open and calcium rushes into your cells. And that actually debilitates the functioning of the nervous system as well as of other organs. Also, another vivid thing that you can see, and I've been watching slides of this, that if you do a live blood analysis, dark field examination of the blood, before and during holding the cell phone at your ear for a half hour, your blood starts forming rouleau. It clots. So your blood clumps up. And if you keep doing it for another half hour, the red cells crenate. That means they sort of shrivel. And this is, over and over and over, this has been done. And that's healthy people. That's not someone sick, or so far healthy people. So these are things that we're just taking for granted, or we're assuming that well, it's okay. I mean, everybody does it, right? But everybody's getting cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. So yeah, everybody does it. Not a reason to do it. So anyway.
You said you were going to talk about what we can do about it.
Yeah, so what you can do about it is take magnesium. And that helps. I mean, that's not
there's so many different ornate and malate and blah.
Yeah. Well, any magnesium will help, but for your brain, the thing that has helped most is magnesium threonate.
Say again?
Threonate, 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 which is a form of magnesium that goes through the blood-brain barrier, so it can help the blood-brain barrier.
And if you want to do plant-based, you can use alfalfa.
Okay, I don't know whether you get the amount that you need, but you can try it and see. I mean, because I can take the magnesium threonate, and my memory is just really sharp, and if I don't do it for a month or two, I can't remember that name. So I can see the difference, and I'm not exposed to that much of technology. So yeah, so there are many things you can do, and certainly we all know that, don't keep your cell phone on, don't put it on airplane mode when you're not using it. And everybody says, oh yeah, of course, turn off the Wi-Fi before you go to bed. Oh yeah, but I don't do it. Oh, I forgot. Well, it's too much trouble. But you're getting zapped, So I'm actually pleading with you to be more conscious of these things, to take care of yourselves, because it really makes a difference, and not just in catastrophic disease, but just in the ability to feel joy and be alive, be joyfully alive. And we got to do that. We have to be joyfully alive if we're going to get other people to be joyfully alive. And so we have to take care of ourselves. And this is really great for all those people who would never do anything for themselves, but they would do it for others. You do this for others. Oh, that's mine.
Is there a brand of the magnesium threonate you like?
I don't know that they're that different.
Okay, that
I
was
mean,
my sense.
some are
but-
really expensive and some are really cheap. I just ordered some cheap ones. I mean, it was a brand I've heard of, but it was still quite inexpensive, and I don't remember which it was.
Great.
But you can pay almost anything for these things that you want.
And what's the dose?
The dose is magnesium threonate is much bulkier than regular magnesium. So the recommended dosage is, and I think it's 500 milligram capsules. Oh my God, I'm not sure. I think they're well, it comes in a standard capsule form. And you're supposed to take 3 of those a day instead of 1 of regular magnesium. But I sort of cheat on that, and I take 1 regular magnesium in the morning, and then at bedtime, I take the 1 or 2 of the threonate, magnesium threonate, because it really helps you sleep soundly, it helps cramps, and it helps your mental state, your clarity of mind. And I'm about to watch, and this is available online if you want to watch it. I've watched several of these things, these summits where you can watch 3 experts a day for a week talk about some subject. And so I've done the one on 5G, I've done the one on GMOs and glyphosate and so forth. And some not so good, but some excellent presentations. Well, this one that's coming up, you know, is about the leaky brain. You've heard of the leaky gut. Well, it was Zach Bush who observed that the fragmentation of the intestinal lining, which causes leaky gut syndrome, that is caused so violently by glyphosate, also causes the same process in the brain. So not only is your gut becoming leaky, but your brain is becoming leaky. And that lets a lot more toxic substances into the brain itself than if your blood-brain barrier is intact. Mine seems to be weakening at the moment. So we
So more atomizing dissolution.
Right. Yeah, it is. Well, because the barrier just kind of breaks apart. If you've seen pictures of that, it's just so dramatic. They did a study where they used a fluorescent dye for the intercellular cement that holds the epithelium of the intestine together. And so they take a picture of it, and it looked like a tiled floor with grout, you know, and the grout was glowing green. And then they gave 1 dose of glyphosate that's about what we would get in regular, you know, organic soybeans or a meal. And it looked like the tiles had all curled up and were lying around randomly. And then he gave his thing that they developed at the University of Virginia, one of the things he helped develop, which is called Restore, that I've told some of you about. And in a day or so, they will all knit back together. So, but you know, this is all disastrous. I mean, we can't keep doing that to ourselves. And so every time you go out to eat, unless you're in a very exceptional place, the food you eat is not going to be organic, and you're going to get dosed with glyphosate.
You guys, there's some weird distortion. I don't know who it's coming through, but.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying, if we're not talking, mute.
Everybody's muted. Except
Well,
me.
you weren't, and Arabella wasn't.
Linda, you don't look, oh, you just talked. Well, maybe it's coming from here. My internet is not very good.
It's okay. It's bad. Yeah.
So anyway, I feel the need to make suggestions about taking care of yourself, because these are relative. I mean, it's not new. It's been going on 150 years, but each time it gets worse. I mean, more disastrous. The electricity was, you know, at first they were using static electricity, and it was a parlor trick. But the people that kept doing the parlor tricks would get sick, you know. And but then the stakes keep going up. And now we're adding another layer with the 5G is another layer of they're doing all the old frequencies, and then they're adding a new range of extra high, extra fast frequencies, which honestly, we don't know what that will do. We don't know that it's going to do anything bad. Predictions are that it's a really bad idea, but it's never been tried. They've never done any tests on it, never done any study of it. And it's all about, we have to have the Internet of Things. You know what that means, right? I didn't know what that meant. But we have to have the Internet of Things, or we might have to drive our own cars, you know, or whatever else. Our refrigerator, we might have to open the refrigerator. I don't know what it's for, but anyway, it's probably not a good idea.
Rudy,
But,
what's the author of The Invisible Rainbow?
his name is Arthur Furstenberg.
Okay.
Firstenberg. I'll guarantee if you read that book, you will be blown away. I mean, especially as a medical professional, you'll be blown away. But even everybody, I think. Or if you work in healing at all, and which we all do, I think you'll find it absolutely amazing.
And so are you, so just because my internet cut out a little bit, this 5G thing, when the whole Corona thing was coming out, I follow this guy, Dr. Klinghardt, who's part of, I think he might be German. I don't know, but he's got a place called the Sophia Institute outside in Woodinville, outside of Seattle. And
right,
he was tracking the 5G thing the whole time. And, you know, where the cluster of COVID outbreak was in Seattle was in a town called Kirkland, which has 5G. And so that's what you're referring to with his electricity thing and the amount of EMFs?
Well, yeah, but the point is, if you listen to Dr. Klinghardt, he says 4G and 3G are also disastrous. It's not just 5G. But it is true that and I did this my own little research project, which is very crude, but I looked at maps of where 5G has really been implemented around the world. And then I looked at maps of where COVID has been most severe. And they're the same spots.
Yes.
You know, they're the same spots. So that's somewhat. And, you know, Wuhan was the place that had the first and most elaborate development of 5G.
Yep.
But Zach Bush, whom some of you have heard me talk about, predicted 5 years ago, that the next pandemic was going to come out of that province of China. And he was right. And so I listened to what he says about COVID, and that's very interesting. And he has a video, or this, I think this is actually a podcast, but it's on YouTube, and it's called A Pandemic of Possibilities, which is, you know, basically very optimistic. He's a real expert on viruses. And
what's his name again?
Zach Bush. No relation to the other Bushes, or I would never have listened to his talk. I'm just kidding. There can be a white sheep, a black sheep, whatever. I don't know. He's really great. And so, yeah, I think we need to be conscious and take precautions to protect our health and well-being, and to ensure that we can really be enthusiastically alive, or we won't be able to do what we're here to do.
Ravi ji, thank
Yes,
you
ma'am.
so much for this tonight. I'm sensing, maybe it's premature, but I'm sensing a kind of a coming to closure. Does that feel right with everybody?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I can go eat my last piece of pizza.
I wonder, would we like to talk again in 3 to 4 weeks?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Do
Can we
you
just-
have your calendar, Robbie G?
3 weeks. What's 1, 3, 4? Actually, 3 weeks. I think we're doing. No, we're finished by then. Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks. 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah.
25th or July 2nd? What pleases everyone?
Well, probably not a good idea to get tangled up in the 4th of July weekend. I don't
Let's
know.
do the 25th then.
Same
Okay,
time?
Yeah.
good.
Does that work for you and your schedule, Linda?
You're on mute, honey.
Okay.
Rudy, if you're willing, like can you hear me?
Yes.
If you're willing, like when you watch this cool stuff or the summit or something that you just think is awesome and you have the bandwidth to email it, even if you email it to one of us, we could share it with the rest of us.
I would love to do that. Are other people interested?
Yeah.
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 I mean,
I've been trying to write all this down, but it, gets hard.
Yeah.
I would love it.
Excellent. I will do that. Yeah, I think this is part of the good part of the unraveling is that a lot of stuff is coming out that before, the system was working to kind of keep all the don't rock the boat.
Yeah.
Well, the boat is tossing and turning now, and so okay, you can go ahead and rock it. It doesn't matter. And so a lot of stuff is coming out that's really helpful and fascinating. And I'm more than happy to share it. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Yes.
25th is good, Linda?
Probably, I don't know. I have some conflicting meetings, but I don't know if they'll really be on at that point, so.
Well, tell us if
Okay.
it's not, because we could do a week later.
Yeah.
Let us know when you know.
Well, a week later, the 2nd does work for me. I already have it on there.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, because I have a group alternating, and so
Oh,
So the-
that's right. I had forgotten.
the
Yeah.
2nd's really better.
Okay.
Okay. Is that all right? Is that okay?
Ready? All
Yep.
right, let's do. Oh, boy. Robbie G, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love doing this. So
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
All right,
And
everybody,
I-
be well.
please stay well. Mm.